Well, joining me now is the Queensland Emergency Services Minister, Neil Roberts. Minister, thanks so much for your time tonight. The Premier has warned that Brisbane and Ipswich are facing its greatest threat and toughest test in more than 35 years. From your perspective, can you give us a greater sense of that threat and the scale of the test that you face?
Well, the modelling shows us that both Ipswich and Brisbane will be experiencing flood levels equal or greater to the 1974 floods. So appropriate information has been provided to both of those communities, and I really do urge people who are watching and listening to take the necessary precautions now. This is a very significant and serious event, and we need people, particularly in those low-lying areas, to pay heed to the public messaging that's going out and to take appropriate action to either evacuate or to move their goods and possessions to higher ground.
So, Minister, how much of Brisbane are we talking about? How many suburbs? How many homes?
Well, we're talking potentially thousands of homes. So again, the clear message is people need to stay tuned to their radio and television to get the latest advice. This is a moving feast. The Bureau and the modelling is showing that these peaks will arrive in the Ipswich area tonight and into tomorrow, and in Brisbane late tomorrow and into Thursday. So there's already flooding in low-lying areas. People are already moving out, but we do need people to take appropriate steps now rather than leaving it too late. Paying attention to the warnings, taking action now can mean the difference between life and death in some cases.
When you say appropriate steps, can you tell us more? What do you mean?
Well, moving to higher ground, some people will need to move into evacuation centres which are being established. But importantly, we want people to look after their neighbours, to knock on the door of elderly people or people in need in their communities. This is a time for the community to pull together. And again, the message needs to be listen to the radio, listen to television, pay heed to the information and warnings that are being given.
Minister, with those sort of figures you just quoted as to potentially how many homes could be affected and the fact that this flood may rewrite history here, how are the emergency services coping? How do you believe they will cope?
Well, they're coping under very difficult circumstances. We have police, emergency services personnel, SES volunteers. We have support from other states. We're making sure, as much as humanly possible, that people are relieved and extra resources are put into those communities which need it. So at this stage, the system and the emergency response is working well. But of course, it's a significant issue, a lot of strain on individuals and the system, but we're coping. But we have had significant offers of support from interstate, and we're taking those up, and those people are moving into Queensland as we speak and in the next couple of days.
What sort of forces are moving in and where are they coming from?
New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia. We've got people from New Zealand, both SES personnel, police personnel, Queensland Fire and Rescue, swiftwater rescue teams from New South Wales, etc. So considerable support from other states, and we're very grateful for that, and we need it.
And what sort of numbers are you talking about there, Minister?
Literally hundreds. And this is an event which has been going for some time, is expected to go for a considerable period of time beyond this. So fatigue management is a considerable issue which a lot of attention is being paid to.
Minister, is this a case that not even the authorities saw this coming, or at least the pace at which it's come? Because the projections, even as late as this morning, didn't suggest the river levels and indeed the potential numbers of homes that could be inundated that we're now contending with.
We're acting on the best advice possible from the Bureau of Meteorology, but this is a moving feast. For example, in the Toowoomba and Gatton area yesterday, there were predictions of very severe storms. However, we had a freak event which put a wall of water through Toowoomba and then down into the Lochar Valley. These things will happen from time to time, but the Bureau of Meteorology has been providing very good expert advice to the disaster management system right across Queensland. And that advice is being acted upon. Sometimes things will change very, very quickly, and we've been seeing that with recent rain events, and we expect that to happen in the future days as well. The important message to communities all over Queensland is to continue to be vigilant and to continue listening to radio and television bulletins, and we're also using the emergency alert system to get timely advice where that's humanly possible to communities as well. The clear advice is pay heed to it, act upon it. It could mean the difference between life and death.
Well, further to your advice there, Minister, the Premier earlier advised the public to not panic and to remain patient. But yet, given this is changing so dramatically and so quickly and seemingly for the worse, how big an ask is it for the public to heed by the Premier's words?
Well, it is important advice for people to pay attention to the messages, but it's also important for them to remain calm, but to act on the advice that's given. We need people to listen, as I've said, clearly to those messages. We will be getting messages out through the emergency alert system, but the primary source of advice and the important source of advice will come through radio and television bulletins. We do need people to pay attention, don't panic, but take action, because we could be critical in some situations.
Minister, we saw earlier a woman in the community of Grantham in Paul Lockyer's report saying that her community will need a lot of help to recover, in effect, and to repair. Given that this disaster has now been going in this state, in so many areas of this state for some weeks, and it's far from over yet, how confident are you that your government, along with Canberra, can provide the sustained help that will be so sorely needed?
Well, we are confident. We've got substantial support from the federal government, obviously both financially and through resources such as the Australian Defence Force. We have at our disposal considerable resources from the Australian Defence Forces and other state agencies, indeed from other states, as I've indicated. As I've indicated earlier, this is certainly putting our emergency services response agencies under a lot of pressure, but we are confident that we can manage it with the support we're getting. But as you point out, the long road to recovery is something which is really significant. There's planning already underway to ensure that that recovery phase is managed well, and we're confident that it can be with the support of the Commonwealth Government, which we're receiving.
Queensland Emergency Services Minister Neil Roberts, thanks for your time this evening.
Good, thanks, Scott.